Chairman of Abuja Municipal Area Council. So, Mrs. Abiodun, you are welcome on board.
Thank you very much.
Also with us, we have our own Professor Gabriel Umo. Professor Gabriel Umo is the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of African Human Development Center, a Nigerian-based NGO. He's a lecturer at the University of Uyo, Nigeria, and a professor of agriculture and development economics. He's a development practitioner with over 30 years experience and a consultant to several international and national development agencies, including the EU, UNDP, USAID, and the World Bank. He's a former senior researcher, research advisor at Shell Petroleum Development Company, former coordinator Millennium Development Goals South-South Zone, Nigeria. He has work experience spanning through the public sector, the academia, and development community. His work experience include that of researching in the interest of agricultural policy and development, climate change environment, economics, and waterland agriculture. He is the chairman board of director of Herald Agribusiness College, Uyo, and is an alumnus of the University of Uyo, University of Ibadan, and Harvard PhD-IA program. So Professor Umo, welcome on board.
Good to be here. Thank you very much.
And our last speaker for today, we have Sueba Yakubu Jibrin. Sueba is a human and development psychologist, an expert in community and sustainable development and NGOs, management and development. She has a master's degree in program/project management, University of Salford, UK. She comes with an ARM degree in agricultural economics, rural development, Navy Usaria, and human and social psychology, NGO management and development from the School of Haifa Managers Israel, and also animal health production technology from the National Veterinary and Research Institute, VOM, in Nigeria. Sueba has more than 20 years working experience on sustainable development in the public sector. She has worked as a teacher and later as an extension agent, then moved into development sector in 2003. She has worked with Development Exchange Center, a local NGO forum, and where she moved to ActionAid Nigeria. She has served as various capacity, both at national and global level program officers. She is as manager and acting country representative for ActionAid International in Lesotho. She has facilitated the formation of many NGOs in Nigeria and has championed ActionAid strategic partnership at national states level, ensuring the inclusion of the poor and vulnerable people in program designing and implementation. She's honored by the UAACA International as one of the anti-corruption icons in Nigeria. She's currently the head of program of ActionAid Nigeria. Sueba, you're welcome on board.
Thank you. Good to have you all. Thank you very much.
At this point, I will like to invite our country director, the person of Mrs. Ene Obi, to give us a welcome and opening remarks for today's webinar. So, welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sani Osas, Charles and the team, the organizing team. I want to say a big welcome to Professor Mo and a very indomitable Biodun SS. You know, it's a great pleasure that to have you here and that you are able to create time despite the busy schedules, you know, that you have. I welcome our own Sueba, and I welcome all the participants who have been able to create time to make it possible to join us this morning to look at the lessons, some of the lessons learned from the little work that we did during the, you know, in terms of palliatives, giving some cushioning effect on the lockdown, the border closure, the effects of all of that, and looking at, you know, the current happenings. I think the lockdown went on for, actually it went on lockdown on the 20th of June. A few days after that, the nation was locked down, or many parts of the country, including, you know, some strategic places. And so for us, in looking at the issues of palliatives, we, you know, ActionAid is a global organization, but it's also a local organization. We work in communities, more than 400 communities across the country. We work in about, I think about more than 16 states in terms of rootedness on ground, and including the Federal Capital Territory, but we in all parts of the country, in the 36 states of the country. Our current strategy is a social justice to end poverty. And so that involves looking out for the most vulnerable people in the society. Our focus and our target, I would say, is on women and girls, children, young people, people living with disabilities. You know, looking at the most vulnerable people in the most vulnerable place, and in places sometimes where many are not reaching out. But we are very excited to engage the government, and I want to, on behalf of ActionAid Nigeria management and also the board of ActionAid, to say a big thank you to Abuja Municipal, which Biodun for us represent, you know, on behalf of the chair and the team at the local council. During the lockdown, Abiodun kept on, you know, constantly in touch with us, not only keeping in touch, since we had to do some palliatives, we needed to be involved. We got in touch with the municipal council, and we were giving, you know, that's when we got a letter of exemption in terms of movement to allow our staff to be able to come out and do the needful and to reach out to the most vulnerable. So Biodun, I want to appreciate you. On one occasion, one of my staff who was an accountant who was coming to work was arrested, and Biodun immediately dropped whatever she was doing, headed to the tribunal where they were sitting, and to get the staff released. I mean, if you go to her office, you know how busy she is, but she abandoned all of that. I want to appreciate you. Indeed, when we look at a Nigerian like you, we know there is the future. So, well, we hope that we pray that you keep it up. We not only work, you know, to that, just leaving us at that environment, the palliatives. Biodun was able to follow up, and all the palliatives, at least where the municipal councils in Abuja, Biodun was able to follow up to allot members, the councillors who were from those communities to assist us in terms of, you know, not just security, but to put their presence on ground and to be educated and also to be part of the distribution. So I want to appreciate you. Today's, when we are looking at this as well, we're looking at, when we're talking about poverty, and now we have COVID-19 that came from nowhere. Already Nigeria, you know, has more than 100 million below the poverty line. But we are now coming, COVID-19 came from nowhere. More than 60% of our workers are in the informal sector. And that means they are on a daily paid work without getting something daily, without earning a living, buying and selling and doing certain things. They are, and then so the lockdown caught a lot of people unawares. What that means is that even after COVID-19, a lot is going to happen. I mean, whether there's an after COVID-19, because we don't know how long the virus, you know, circulation is going to last. But even in the heat of the pandemic, when it goes down, those who have capitals would have eaten them up because they have been at home for a very long time. So we don't know what is going to happen. But right now we'll be looking and hoping that MBS, you know, the National Bureau of Statistics is able to give us some statistics now, because a lot of people have been plunged down, you know, below the poverty line. So issues of diversification of our economy is another thing that has shown up, because during COVID-19, the oil plunged further down. You know, even before then, there was a lot of dwindling. And so in terms of diversity, where are we going to look at? I hope that the Nigerian government will think about where we used to get our feeding from, or where, you know, it was agriculture that was the mainstay. We still have the land, we have everything on ground that can allow diversification. And so ActionAid is following up from all the thematic areas that we are working. We are following up on agriculture, we are monitoring women farmers, and so there has been a lot, but I will stick to the issue of the palliatives. And so what we have done is to aid people because of the restrictions of movement, mothers not having been able to feed their families. And one of the things with ActionAid is that we use female-headed household in most cases, unless in few cases where a man is left with so many children and they don't, coping becomes, especially in the time in areas like in the Northeast, where you have some, families, women killed and they're left, husbands left. But we imagine that when we say we are supplying households, we look at a family of 6, either a mother with a husband or something in any case. And one of the unique things of the palliative too, when people say they are giving palliatives, they are making supply of food. There are certain things that are non-food items that are essential to women, like the sanitary towel, and a host of other things that will make their life more meaningful. Because whether you like it or not, women will go through what they have to go through, whether in the case of war or any other time of flooding. And so we are happy that ActionAid was able to reach, under the local rice program, about 1,000 households, across Lagos. I think we have Akwa Ibom, we have the FCT, and a few other states. But also within our Women Voices and Leadership program, we reach so many other states, in other parts of the country as well, where they are able to give palliatives. But so we look at the lessons, we hope that we're able to view few lessons going on, because most states are giving the palliatives now from ActionAid. What we are trying to do here is aiding the government in some of the work. We know where the community people are, we hear from them, we hear what is going on there, and we are able to, reach out to them. But I want to say that in all of this, for those who are participants here, if you feel that you want to be part of reaching the hard to reach areas, where ActionAid has been in terms of giving the palliatives, and when we have not been through our community sponsorship program, if you look at maybe the chat box, you'll be able to look at the account numbers, if you want to be part, because what we have been doing is raising money from other parts of the world, to reach out to people, but we are now raising money from Nigerians for Nigerians. And so if you're interested, what we ask for is, one of it is for the regular giving, we say give 2,000 a month. That is 24,000 a year. You are able to put children in school or make interventions easy when there is flooding or any natural disaster. And also, in terms of this palliative, 2,000, some people are giving us 50,000, some people are giving us, 100,000 a month. Some Nigerians have decided to say, I want to be part of this. And so they have been part of this. So we encourage you to work with ActionAid, to be part of ActionAid, in terms of making your presence known. So we welcome you to this very short seminar, but lessons. And I hope that we'll listen to those who have gone to the ground, who have met the people, the real people on ground, and how ActionAid has been able to effect some changes in lives of people, working together with the government as well. Thank you so much, and I wish us a very successful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
our own country director, for that wonderful opening remarks in the background setting. Like I shared earlier, we are going to start our presentation, and I said that our presentation, we're going to take the first 2 speakers. That's Mr. Biodun and Prof. But we are going to start with Biodun. And basically, the flow of the presentation, we're going to take 10 minutes per speaker. After 10 minutes for each of these speakers, we'll take some questions and answers from our participants. And we'll now move forward to the last speaker to also give us our own part of the speech, and then we will now pause the questions. And probably we will now give more time, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to round up the sessions from each of the speakers, and we'll take our final questions before we close for today. Like I said, my co-moderator, Osas, will actually be taking some notes of some of those questions that you've typed in the chat box, and she will also be ready to guest speakers for today. So we want to, I would like to invite Abiodun, probably to take the first shot in terms of looking at government strategies that they adopted in distribution of the palliative in the midst of the COVID-19. And basically, Abiodun, you help us touch around issues around how were households identified, what's the government do in terms of coordination and distribution of this palliative, and how were they able to reach the vulnerable and the poor and excluded communities within the government communities and the state that they cover. Probably were there some donations from donors? What are some of the key lessons of that distribution during the pandemic? And what other effective approaches you want the government to take further subsequently? So, please, you have the floor and welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Action Head. First, let me appreciate the country director for a support, and also the Action Head team for their passion they've shown in what they do in the service they render, especially to the hard-to-reach communities. Working with Action Head, I've been able to even know some of the communities that within in our constituency that have never been before. You know, I wonder how Action Head does this, you know, to identify some of this community and also reach out to them, even with some of your programs like ICT program and also for the palliative. I also, on behalf of the AMAC chairman, Honorable Abdullahi Adamu Kandido, also thank Action Head for reaching out to 4 of our communities, hard to reach communities within the municipal with some of your palliative. You know, Action Aid palliative was the best. It was juicy. He had everything that everybody wanted, and also with the sanitary part for the women. I want to thank Action Aid for that. So I will set a background for all the questions that you've asked me. I thought you'd be asking it one after the other, but you know, let me just take it one after the other. So let me give a brief background about Abuja Municipal Area Council. So Abuja Municipal Area Council is one of the local governments in FCT Abuja, and is one out of 6 other local governments, and it's the biggest local government in Abuja. So concerning the palliative, the coordination of the palliative distribution in FCT Abuja was coordinated by the Honorable Minister for State, Dr. Ramatu Tijani, because she's the one managing the area council's affairs. So she was also given the mandate to coordinate the palliative distribution across the 6 area councils in FCT. So in Abuja Municipal Area Council is the biggest area council in FCT. We have 12 wards, and each of those wards, we have elected councillors who are the ones managing the affairs of those communities under them. So in Abuja Municipal Area Council as a whole, we have about 244 communities that are across the 12 wards. So for the palliative distribution, like I said, it was coordinated by the Office of the State Minister for FCT. So in each of the area council, we were asked to set up a committee to manage the distribution of palliative. So in each area council, there was one representative working with the Office of the State Minister for FCT on how to go about managing these affairs. And the person chosen for AMAC was the Council Secretary, Honorable Ramat Abisola Abdullahi. So for us, I was part of the committee in AMAC. So we have about 23 committee members in AMAC to manage the distribution of the palliative across the 12 wards and over 244 communities. So for us, this was the central committee within the area council, and we gave each of our councillors the mandate to set up a similar kind of committee in their ward level, about 9-man committee to manage this distribution at the ward level. So for instance, we have Wuse Ward in Amak, the council, we have an elected councillor there. So he was given the mandate to set up a similar committee and also bring about the list of households and vulnerable people within its constituency. So with the typical situation of COVID-19, so we were focusing, our agenda for the palliative distribution was to focus mainly on the indigent people, poor, elderly, marginalized people. But because of the situation of COVID-19, we realized that we had more vulnerable people in that needed palliative. So we're talking because most of our people are informal workers, and because of the lockdown measure, they couldn't go for their day-to-day activities. So the people we were focusing on became bigger, more than the indigent people. We had more vulnerable people requesting for palliative distribution. For instance, you have an Uber driver who normally goes for work every day, and now because of the lockdown can't go for work. These are the kind of people that now became vulnerable due to COVID-19. So you have people within the estate, you think people within the estate in Abuja City are okay, they have money, they have everything they need, but some of them were reaching out to us that they also needed palliative. So also we have the National Bar Association, the lawyers within the FCT, also reaching out to us that some of their lawyers that go to court on a daily basis are finding it difficult to also get food or the necessary palliative to sustain themselves. So they were also reaching out to the area council for support. So we can see how the vulnerability has, become a widespread something that we can't just focus on the indigent people, but also focusing on the people that become vulnerable due to the lockdown of COVID-19. So for each of our wards, the elected councillors were made the chairman of each of those wards to go to the communities and liaise with the community leaders and chiefs to bring about the list of indigent people or vulnerable people within their community or within their constituency. And all these lists were gathered up and also submitted to the central working committee at the council. So the first step of our assignment was to gather the list and identify the vulnerable people, even going to the household and put a sticker and mark them as the vulnerable people so that by the time they want to start the distribution, they know the household that they have assessed or marked out as vulnerable people. And also to extend this list to other different stakeholders that have reached out to us and said, okay, the association and their group of workers, informal workers, are also finding it difficult to get some palliative and they will need some palliative. So we extended that to those areas. So in each of our 12 wards, we collated names of vulnerable people and also people that are indigent that needed the palliative, and it was submitted to the central committee, which was also forwarded to the Office of State Minister for FCT. So that was how we identified the vulnerable households for the palliative distribution. Can I go ahead with the other question?
Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. So concerning the coordination. So for AMAC, like I said, the palliative were handed over to councillors representing those wards. Sorry for that, I had a call. So AMAC was the last area council that was given palliative. So the palliative started from Abaji area council, which was far around Kwagwalada area council. So AMAC was the last area council given the palliative from the state minister for FCT. So before we were given the palliative, we submitted lists of vulnerable households and to, although for HAMAC, we have of names of funds and all that, but we couldn't use that. We had to go about and identify the people and also receive the notification from other different households based on who was vulnerable and who needed more attention. So for each of our committees in the ward level, so for instance, we have Wuse ward, and the councillors were given the mandate to also set up a subcommittees in their ward. So for instance, Wuse 2 will also set up a 9-man committee. A 9-man committee constituted by the chief, the village head, the tribal leaders of different ethnic groups, religious leaders. We had of our elected councillors have
We're actually losing you. I guess probably the network's a bit bad, the location there.
What they are doing, so that they needed the palliative. We're asked to set up a committee to manage the distribution of the palliative, and that was how we used. That was the strategy we used in distribution. So as we collected the palliative, the area councillors who were invited to art and culture to receive the troller load of palliative. One was the rice, and the other one was the other condiment, which was rice, 2 kg of beans, like Maggi. So the 2 trailer loads each for each ward. They were taken to their ward and handed over to the subcommittees as those at the various wards to manage distribution. So as each trailer load gets to a distribution point in the ward, all the 9-man committee that have been set up, subcommittee of different communities, were requested to send about 5 representatives to pick up their palliative. And as they were coming, somebody signs for it, and whatever is being given is being accounted for. And we also asked them to also take a picture of the different households that they were given palliative. So for the central committee, 3 different task forces were set up. So AMAC is divided into 3 zones, zone A, B, and C. So the central committee divided itself. I was for zone A, which was from Yaya, Karo, and Orozo and Kerishi. So we're given the mandate to supervise what each of those councillors were doing, and also what the committee set up at the ward level were also doing. So we had to monitor the distribution and also follow up to even the household to know who were given the palliative and what was the criteria they used in identifying those ones, just to make sure that they followed the criteria given to them and the specific things they were supposed to identify before giving the household the palliative. And also to mark by 2 rounds of palliative. And the first one, each of our area councils receive about, each ward receive about 3,000 palliatives. Palliative means a bag of 5 kg rice and another bag of different condiments. That was the statistic of the palliative given to us. And the second round was about 250 palliative each to each ward in our area council, which was distributed about 2 weeks after the first one was given to us. So that was how we distributed the palliative according to the committee set up by the councillor at the ward level, and also a subcommittee that's been set up at the community level to manage those distributions. So for you wanted to say something?
Well, maybe you just, for the purpose of time, you could just, maybe just in a minute, tell us how effective did you think that the whole process went, particularly looking at the involvement of some political office holder, probably councillors who are actually elected on the platform of some political party. How did that go well with people who were not really from that same political party during the distribution? So how effective was it?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. So in setting up that was why we said the opposition party for any of the wards that has maybe ruling party opposition, the opposition party joins the committee. So for instance, if the Wuse councillor is from APC, then the opposition party, PDP, will also be members of the central committee for the ward level in managing the distribution. So that was how we identified that. So, and for me, as a major observation for us in palliative distribution is my concern for the coordination of different governmental agencies in managing whatever palliative was given. So the palliative was not just about food stop alone, but also money was given to different area councils and was shared by different groups of by different agencies. And also the food school feeding program was also carried out and given to the parents of pupils in our public school in the class or in primary 1, between primary 1 and primary 3. So the school feeding program was also done at the same time. But I was concerned about the structure and coordination of this activity by different governmental agencies and also carrying the necessary agency of government along in the process of planning and execution of what was being done. A major concern in relation to women was how the structure that we have set up in managing distribution, how patriarchy it was. It was more of patriarchy in the sense that the kind of stakeholder we were requesting to join the palliative committee we had more men. Because when you talk about the community leader is a man, the religious leader is also a man, the elected councillor is a man, the ethnic or tribal leader, they're all men. So we just had only maybe like a woman leader that was, attached to it. And, when you have more men, they overpower you and, that's what happens. So that was one observation I, as a feminist in governance, realized that it was too patriarchy in the distribution, since we knew it was, women are the ones that will also make use of the palliative and also produce that for their family. So that was my own observation for that. And a key lesson we also learned was the use of data. It was very important, data. So we couldn't get an organized register of vulnerable people within the council. So we didn't have like a social identity register of the different groups of marginalized people within the area council, which I think if we had them, it would have made the distribution of the palliative easier. And even if those people that became vulnerable to the COVID-19 were not captured, we could have captured them using another means. So we didn't have that data of the social identity of the people within our constituency, which was a major setback for us. Although our social welfare unit had, data of orphans and some other vulnerable group, but it had not been updated for a while. And which I think is something we need to have as a database to know the group of people that are vulnerable, where they live, their phone contacts and the rest, so that we're able to reach out to them. And not just because of palliative alone, but also to help to draft policies and laws that could help and affect and change their status quo or help to promote community development. So we needed that for policy making and also for managing service delivery. So it was a major setback for us. And I think as a government,
I have to, sorry for the interruption. Probably we still have some few minutes towards the end for you to wrap up some of those things. We need to also give other speakers time. I said 10 minutes. I'm also conscious of, please, thank you very much for that and detailed explanation and that you've just provided to us. I know our participants are actually listening and probably they have some questions in mind. We want to thank Abiodun for that elaborate discussions and presentation. At this point, I hope Prof is prepared. We're going to give Professor Umo the space to probably look at, Prof, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay, so we're going to give.
Is it my time now?
Yes, Prof.
Thank you very much.
We have 10 minutes max for you to look at issues around the civil society involvement in the palliative.
You know, I'm a teacher, so I should be given more time to talk.
No, please.
Thank you so very much, Sandy and members of Action Aid team and participants. I want to use the opportunity to upfront thank Action Aid Nigeria for the great support they've given African Human Development Center to extend to communities under the present situation that we found ourselves. And not only that, the previous work we have been doing seems to have been a prediction to the fact that a day like this, a time like this will come. Remember, in Akwa Ibom, we have IFAS, livelihood issues that we have addressed, strengthening community members and groups, empowering them with the support of Action Aid. Now, let me give a little bit of background, summary of Akwa Ibom State food situation. Akwa Ibom State doesn't have sufficient land for farming. The land tenure system leads to parcelization and making land very small because of inheritance, sharing and resharing and resharing and resharing. So people don't have economic size land plots again for farming. As I tell you, we have the data that more than 60% of the food crops, food that are consumed in Akwa Ibom State come from outside the states. We have yam from northern Nigeria and northern Cross River, rice and grains, beans, meat, 90%, 99% of the meat, livestock, goats, sheep, they all come from northern Nigeria. So there's the challenge of livelihood, there's the challenge rising from land tenure system, and the challenge of food production in the state. So that already was the situation before the pandemic. So when the COVID-19 came and there was a lockdown, no movement, no petty traders could not go to the market to sell what they have, so no income. Farmers could not go to the farm again, even though there was at a particular point in time a relaxation of the condition that there could be movements of food stuff from one state to another. But we could know a food hungry state already under that condition. And recently, the state government banned bringing in livestock into the state. And we depend 99.9% on livestock that are brought in from northern Cross River. So households are really facing hard times in terms of food. So if we juxtapose this on already vulnerable households, you can see the situation that people face and how the palliative would have been received. Having said that, let me go to how we went about administering the palliative to the communities. The first thing we did was to do community and household mapping. First, from the work we've been doing in the community, with the support of Action Aid, we have the dossier of each of the 14 communities that we are working in presently under local rights program in Akwa Ibom State, even though from other programs we work in other communities. So we can, from the record, we're able to pick the vulnerable communities that we rated with high incidence of poverty, a lot of vulnerable people in various areas, and they were also very difficult to reach communities. A place like Ikot Gama, this is a community that sand mining is going on. So with heavy truck, tippers, the roads are all gone and they are difficult to access. Those were some of the communities that we assisted in this. So we, from the database in our archives, in the office, we were able to select 5 communities that qualify based on the criteria I've just described. And then we were in the communities to do mapping of the needy households, the vulnerable households. Those households that are headed by the aged, women, widow, children-headed households, persons with disabilities. And we first of all started
okay, I think we are having challenge with a network from Prof. This. Hello, Prof. Are you there? Hello.
Hello, Prof.
Yes, we are having some network.
By his larger cluster of other smaller families. So they identified that we wanted what we were to do to be inclusive and to go around so that there will not be grumbling of every one family or the other. So having done that, we asked them to on their own mention those households that they feel and they know from their circumstance need more support and assistance. And they were able to come up with a list of households based on the criteria that we've given them. And from there, we were able to thin down to a total of 230 households to be supported. So armed with the data, we now set about the procurement process using our own African Human Development Center procurement criteria. And we procured rice, beans, Indomie noodles, and vegetable oil. Because we felt that this will assist them to at least withstand the shock of the pandemic at this time. So then we settled on the dates to go hand over this to the beneficiaries. We reached out to government officials at the states and the local government level. The chairman, the communities we selected span across 3 local government areas. We reached out to the local government chairman and of course the councillors representing the communities that were eventually selected to be part of what we were going to do. We informed them the dates and all that and the role they were to play to witness and of course encourage the people to take precautionary measures. So the dates were set and then we moved in. I want also to mention that in Akwa Ibom State, we have task force on COVID-19. This task force is replicated at the local government area. So each local government area has a task force on COVID-19 pandemic. So members of the task force were also amongst those that we invited to be part of what we're doing. So on the agreed dates, we set out to the communities. We make sure that we adhere to the precautionary measures as given by government and health institutions of making sure we kept to the social distancing instruction and that each of, we didn't bring all the community members together, only the beneficiaries and a few community leaders to witness. So we started by giving each of them the nose mask to use, those who did not have. And then we used the opportunity to also create awareness and sensitize them on the need for sanitation and to do hand washing, to use the nose mask and to keep social distance and do all that the government and health organizations, institutions are asking us to do. So that's how we were able to distribute the palliative to 230 households in Akwa Ibom State. Our experience so far and the responses we've been getting from these communities are very encouraging. Even as yesterday, we still had calls from some members of those communities thanking us for the palliative which assisted this needy household to cushion the shock that the pandemic has visited on the households. They talk about the quantity of the food stuff that they receive, which at least has served them for a reasonable number of days. And of course, the selection process, and actually those that deserve to be supported were the ones that actually were supported. So those are the kind of responses, and like Oliver Twist, they are still asking for more. Now,
Prof, if I might ask, you talked about collaborating actually with some of the councillors.
yes.
What other government agencies or ministries were you able to engage?
Hello?
What other government agencies or ministries
The
were you able to
Ministry of
engage?
Women Affairs and Agriculture. We've always collaborated. The Ministry of Economic Development were the two agencies at the state level that we engaged with in the process. And then we went down to the local government councils. We had contacts and invited them to be part of it. So, so those are some of the experiences. Even up to now, the request is still coming that they need further assistance, even though, like we observe, many more people are really affected by the current situation, and they will need support. But I think the process that we adopted, given our database and working with community members in our own consideration, brought out the caliber of people that we felt the first line of action should be those people before others, because others may have some reserve which they can rely on, even though it's not enough up to now. So having said that, it looks like there's a need for because as we discovered that the government of Akwa Ibom State was also doing similar thing, using the task force on COVID-19 at the local government council level. And but from the information we have on social media and the communities, there are some complaints about the selection process. So we feel that if there's a closer collaboration, if the civil societies that have deeper penetration of the communities, civil societies that work in the communities are part and parcel of this government effort, there could be a better selection of the really needy people. Because it looks like politicians will think of the next election. So they will use the political structure, which could have some challenges. So there's need for better collaboration between the civil society and government. And this can be done in different ways.
Okay, Prof, we would like to pause. We would like to pause you a bit here, and we will come to you back. Looking at our time, probably we want to hear from our participants. So thank you very much for that extensive explanation how the whole process went in terms of distribution of the palliative supported by ActionAid and AHDC in Akwa Ibom State. So we want, at this moment, I would like to hand over to Osas to have, let's use 5 minutes to look at some of those questions coming from participants, and we want the speakers to respond to those questions. After that, we're inviting Sueba to come on board to actually look at the accountability perspective to the palliative distribution. So Osas, over to you.
Thank you very much, Abiodun Esset and Prof. Gabriel Umo, for shedding light on the different strategies employed in the palliative distribution at the federal and also at the state level. What you discussed has thrown up lots of questions, especially for Abiodun. Tighten your belts. There are quite many. All right, so I'll just go straight to them. The first one is coming from Samuel. How did AMAC manage the politicalization of the palliative distribution? You mentioned working with party representatives. How were you able to manage them of not manage them so that they don't jack the process and they don't use it as a leverage for the forthcoming elections for their party. So that's one. I don't know if you can take everything.
Okay, let me just take one after the other.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, so for us, we had other CSOs that were involved in monitoring the process, and they were also part of the Central Committee for the Palliative Distribution. We had, so they were given the mandate to also follow up the distribution and also be part of like an observer to whatever was going on in the palliative distribution. And the media were also carried along to also follow up with the palliative distribution as observers also, and also share their opinion and idea, and also reach out to us when there are issues. So for our social media, our social media page was also used to get observation and feedback from people. So some people reach out to us, okay, in our area, we have not seen people. So we get the location, we transfer their questions also to the councillors and members of the committee. So the central committee were responsible for managing and also getting the ward committee responsible to do the right thing. And also not for them to use politics to hijack the whole process, because it was meant for members of the community that were indigent, no matter who the political party they belong to or the religious group they belong to. But, you know, for us, what we're receiving, the feedback we're receiving, because Abuja Municipal is cosmopolitan, we had a group of non-indigenous, mostly indigenous, but we had also a whole good number of non-indigenous that reside within Abuja. So we had issues that, you know, some of the non-indigenous said, you know, the palliative that got to their communities was too small and all that. So we had to address those issues and also bring their leaders involved in the committee.
All right, thank you very much for that.
May I just request that you read out those questions, probably 2-3 questions, so that they will take notes of it, and let's just have one response at the same time as speakers because of time. And please, I want to plead with the speakers, please just take note as Osas read 2 or 3 questions, and those ones that has to do with you, please, you just respond to them at the same time. Thank you.
All right, Umar Abdul is saying information reaching him is that some of the chiefs hijack the palliatives to themselves. So how were we able to address that? And did we integrate messaging or sensitization on COVID-19, or were we just focused on distributing the palliatives to the communities? And what other development issues were thrown up as the palliatives were distributed? Abiodun, can you answer that, or can I add one more? I have a personal question, like how will government address the public skepticism about the reality of the existing palliative regime? There's so many questions thrown up on the palliative. Were they able to reach the most vulnerable, people that needed it the most, or as we use the slot system, just the chiefs and those different groups benefited majorly from the palliatives? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. And okay, for us, before we started the distribution of the palliative, we were in all the communities sensitizing people about COVID-19. So our health department, we have about 50 primary healthcare centers in Amak, so and they are shared across all the 12 wards. So we use our primary healthcare center as the central point to reach out to the community on COVID-19 messages and other precautionary measures. Even it was in one community that the chief reached out to us that they saw somebody that just came back from abroad and she's looking like she's sick. Based on the information we gave to them, they were able to reach out to us. And also some of our PACs were also sensitized. They were given PPEs to protect themselves as people come to receive medical treatment and advice. There was an incident that was reported that 3 Chinese people came to one of our PACs to get medical support and, to get medical advice on COVID-19, and they were referred also to NCDC for further treatment. So we had to do sensitization, so that we are still doing sensitization, and with support of different organizations, also like Action Aid, they were able to reach out to some of our hard-to-reach community to sensitize them in local languages on COVID-19 and what needs to be done. And that's that for that. So for the palliative distribution, we understand that, issues around ethnic minority, indigenous issues and all that. So that was why we incorporated the leaders of all the tribal leaders of other ethnic groups to be involved in managing the distribution of the palliatives. So in each community, we have a 9-man community, and the other ethnic leaders were also considered as part of the committee members to also address the needs of their people within their region, and also bring to us issues that affect their region and how they need to be carried along. So for us, the palliative was small. Amak is a very big community and a very big local government. We couldn't reach the most vulnerable people. Like I said earlier, a lot of people became more vulnerable due to COVID-19 measures, and which we're also looking out to reach, but we couldn't reach to all those people. And with the support of some NGOs like Action Aid, also Julius Baja donated some food materials to us, which was given to indigent people, especially the widows and the elderly people. We called them within the area council and we gave them individually and not through any committee. So, and also some other community were reached out directly by civil society organization. Some of the civil society reached out to us that they have a particular community in mind and they wanted to reach out to them. So that was the process we used in reaching out to those communities. And we're open for feedback. We opened our media outlet for feedback and also observation concerning the distribution of the palliative. So it's not what, we hope the government could do more. And for us in Amak, apart from the palliative we collected from the minister, we also distributed about a trailer load of rice and a trailer load of beans across the 12 wards. That was also shared to complement the distribution of the palliative by the state minister for FCT. So we did that because we also realized there was some observation coming back, the feedback we had gotten that some areas couldn't get the palliative, and what they gave them was actually not what we asked them to give. So for instance, an household is supposed to collect 5 kg of rice and also 1 bag of palliatives. And from what we got, by the feedback we got, was that some of the community, they asked different groups to share the condiments and also the rice. So they didn't really follow the specific criteria that we gave them in sharing the palliatives, and that was the issue we had. And they also reached out to us that it was because they had more people in their communities than what was given to them. That was why they had to share the palliatives like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that clarification. There are still more questions. Someone is concerned about the involvement of persons with disabilities at the committee level. How are we able to reach out to them? Because we know they're also part of those vulnerable in communities. Another person is talking about the sustainability of palliative support at communities. I think the person is trying to talk of sustainable livelihood. How do we go beyond giving them fish and teaching them how to fish as well? There are also some hands up. I don't know if you want to answer that before we start.
Yeah, let me just answer that. So for people living with disability, the minister took care of them separately. So for people living with disability, the association were given a trailer load of palliative and rice, which is about 3,000 palliative and 3,000 bag of 5 kg of rice, which was shared across the IDP community, the people living with disability across their communities within FCT. Also, people living with disability were given their palliative directly from the Minister for State. So she gave them directly in their communities and they shared it out. Also, women within the barracks, living within the barracks, were also given their palliative separately by the State Minister for FCT. So for us as the government, the COVID-19 has taught us so many lessons about how we do our business, and also see how our business can even thrive with COVID-19 and other pandemic in future. But we're concerned about how to make business thrive. So we're working with the federal government, with CBN and other federal government agencies to help our businesses within the municipal access the loan, palliative measures or COVID-19 loan that was set aside by the federal government to business owners, medium and small scale businesses. We're able to access those loans. Now they don't need a collateral to access those loans. So we're trying to structure our informal workers into group of cooperatives so that they can be trained on how they can manage those loans and be able to access the loans. So that's what we're doing as a government agency. And we're also building a platform to really deliver governance, and e-service platform to be able to deliver governance online to people, for people to be able to reach to us, communicate to us about their needs and challenges, and also see how we can meet up their needs. For us, the chairman has given business owners within the municipal some tax break so that they can also survive and also get their business back on their feet within the first 2 months of reopening the full economy. So we are not going to be going about harassing people or asking people for tax for now, but we are asking people to follow the post-COVID-19 precautionary measures in starting their businesses, and also make sure that their businesses are doing well, and for them to have this break to recover from the effect of COVID-19 and also get back their businesses and achieve what they want to achieve.
Okay, thank you, Osas. Osas, probably.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, so we're wrapping up now.
Osas, can you hear me? Hello, Osas.
Yes, I can hear you, Sunny.
Okay, I think we would like to pause with the question. Please, participants will be here. I saw some people have raised their hands. Let's see how we'll be able to take the final speaker. And from there, we will now give those who are actually raising their hand the opportunity to ask direct questions. I also noticed that we had few questions for no questions for Prof at the moment, but you can also look at those charts if there are more questions that are coming up, and specifically those ones that are meant for Prof, and we'll note them down, and you need to also respond to those ones. So at this point, let me also invite Ajia Sueba Yakubu Jubrin, who will be bringing the perspective of in terms of issues around accountability and the palliative distributions of the government, specifically probably in the FCC or at the national level. So Ajia, you're welcome on board. Ajay, your speaker is on mute. Please unmute.
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting discussion, and I have listened carefully to most of the presentations. Following Professor Gabriel, we've had the process of distribution, what happened, and this should be, is a pattern that ActionAid adopts in any situation when it comes to emergencies. I want to say that, to start by saying that most palliative processes or response initiatives are highly vulnerable to misappropriation, corruption, slippage, and if we are not careful, bureaucratic processes put under this particular situation will render the whole process useless or unuseful to the people who are intended with these services. Every response mechanism should adapt to accountability principles, which include the first one being relevant. How relevant is the services we are giving to people when it comes to emergencies? Because the palliative under COVID-19, or as presented by COVID-19, is find itself, or it can be traced under the emergency response mechanisms, even though this one is can be related to the response to pandemic or emergencies in terms of disease epidemics and so on. So we look at the issue of relevance. Then we look at the issues of timeliness. What time are we giving the palliatives, and what time is it needed by the beneficiaries? And most, if you look at the issue of COVID-19 critically, you realize that by the time people start getting these palliatives, they have suffered a lot before the items they are getting to them. And then when you look at the issues of around adaptability, we also want to consider how adaptable are the items that are being given to people so that they are able to use them without challenges or without, and then they are also going to are able to use the support you're giving them alongside what they have. Is it really adaptable? And then the issue of safety and safeguarding issues, I mean, around any response we are giving when it comes to emergency or which palliative falls into, and then the issue of consultation. And then also you have the issues around flexibility, and then most importantly now, the issue for collaboration. All this put together will not happen if there's no sound emergency preparedness plan, either by a country or an organization. Yes, we can say we did not prepare for COVID-19. It just came, but it came up with a lot of windows of opportunity for people to learn. Listening to Abiodun, she said, they've learned one major factor, data. There's no way anybody can plan adequately and conduct any and implement any people-centered development issue, support or program without adequate data. And this thing has been on agenda of every situation we find ourselves in Nigeria. The major concern will be lack of data. When will we have the data that we need in terms of emergency preparedness? And so if we have the data that talks about location of people, people who are the age groupings, the social status, and then certain level of vulnerability documented, especially when it comes to the issue of emergency, it will go a long way. Now, when we're looking at the transparency, vulnerability of the sector will start from the budgeting process. When budgets are allocated for palliatives, when is it, what are the items that were considered to produce that budget? Secondly, at what time is the budget released? Thirdly, who are the implementing agencies? What are the collaborative mechanisms? And how are we monitoring the implementation of those, the amount, either the money itself or the items that we have bought? And so when we have a very good plan with the data of people, so that's if you listen to Professor Omo, you find out, first of all, Action Aid will go for an assessment to understand the context, to talk with the people directly who are affected, and then people will also contribute to what is needed by them. And so looking at the strategic needs and the practical needs all taken into consideration. And then before you talk about procurement, and in the procurement process, a lot of funny things happen. Who goes to the market? Then the bureaucratic processes also affect the process of procurement. So it's what are the procurement strategies that government has in place? For Action Aid, we have the procurement process, and we still have the particular component of procurement under emergency situation. Some of the bureaucracies that affects the flow will be relaxed, but in the process of relaxing this, some of the processes, some things could happen. And so what we are looking at in terms of COVID-19 is to ask the government, for instance, what are those processes put in place, especially in making sure that the process of purchasing, that's procurement, is transparent, is open. The committees that are set by the AMAC local government is commendable, but who has information about what was planned and who took part in the planning process? And if everybody understands what is the plan, what is being procured, at the end of the day, we need to take stock. Who receives what was budgeted? And so we still have a lot more to do post-COVID-19 or after the palliative, to sit down and then do a reflection of what really took place. So the learning is not just ending from the field, but in understanding how effective the process has been. I was in the community myself with building in some of the communities, and the staff were also in the field. When you consult and when you give people the opportunity to make decisions of what comes to them, it builds also their capacity. And the capacity is also supposed to help them to prepare against next, in anticipation. Nobody wants any emergency, but it comes, it happens. So if it happens, the issue of diversification, for instance, when you're talking about the agriculture or women in agriculture, by the time we sit down and do some analysis, they are able to plan ahead in the future. What should we do? Will it include some diversification of businesses, the one that can happen within, and then that's something that reserves that can help to keep the family in terms of need, while before help come and so on. So the COVID-19 has provided windows of opportunity for planning and deeper reflection of how will the country or how we as NGOs will do things, will do business differently. I like the approach of the AMAC chair or the AMAC local governments by involving the chiefs. And somebody already asked the question about the involvement of political parties in the whole process. You realize not all the parties may be in one community. And so if we take that into consideration as a criteria, then we run into the problem of politicizing the process. And just if I can bring one example, in the platform of people who are engaged in the distribution of palliative or planning for the emergency organized by Action Aid, some communities will come in with a report that some items have arrived in their community, but it is for particular party people. I have seen that report in the platform, but thank God there's an open space because AMAC has a page that you quickly send in information, and then most of the concerns that people were raising finds its way to that page. So really, we need to look at also the logistics components of the process. How much have we spent in the overhead running recurrent expenditure, even in the face of the COVID-19? We are talking about parliament. We are distributing support or relief, what maybe 90,000. How much do we spend in overhead for us to reach these people? You find out that a lot of money will be spent. The committees, are there, the logistic component. But then if it is not properly checked, the amount that will be spent on the recurrent will far outweigh the amount of that is spent in supporting the people, reaching out to the unreached. Action Aid has reached really the most vulnerable. Abiodun was asking, how do we do it? The fact is that the assessment process is robust. It enables you to really identify those who are really in need. And in most cases, you find that the community people themselves will contribute to those to support you, not understanding those who need the support much more than others. And so you are able to reach the most vulnerable. The work we do in the hard to reach communities also is informed by the context of Nigeria, given the statistics that the majority of Nigerians live in the rural areas, and then they are the ones that are there without access to basic social services. So with the coming of COVID-19, they were most hit because they cannot bring their produce to the towns to sell, and then they are caught up with the situation. So the most important, or the first thing to think of is how do we reach those who are much more vulnerable, talking about transparency. So how we are able to adapt the strategies that we take in responding to emergencies depends on the level of accountability or values that is upheld by any organization. And the committees that are set up by government to implement any palliative or any response mechanism needs to be of really high integrity to be able to represent the government and make sure that those people in need really get the services that they will require. In the meantime, palliatives have come. It is still happening. Some states are opening up with the intrastate travels are happening, and then the markets are opening gradually. and people are safe. But still, like Prof says, the complaints are coming. People are hungry, and given the socio-economic realities of Nigeria, people will keep demanding. So, to what extent is government taking this into consideration in planning the next phase of poverty alleviation programs and in designing the economic development programs in the country as in general? Because what the lessons we learn will help in shaping those phases of development, like I mentioned before. So I think in a nutshell, when you look at the issues of emergency, the level of preparedness of every country becomes very, very critical. And then when you look at the budgetary allocation, not just the budget, the release. And then when you talk about the release, not just the release, how can we trace it? Where is the money going? Who is responsible for the implementation? And how do we track in terms of monitoring and evaluation, evaluating the impact? First is to monitor the process. Where is the money going? What items have been procured? Who gets what? And then get feedback from the people, those beneficiaries, people who have benefited. Reports came in sometimes when we are distributing 50 kilograms of rice directly to people, hand to hand. But when you delegate and you don't follow, people will get a handful in place of 50 kilograms of rice. So some reports have come. So documentation of these testimonies and then the reports that have been generated is very, very key. And then reflection, a critical reflection of what has happened, what needs to happen next, and then how do we take into the lessons into the future emergency preparedness, emergency plans for the country. I think I will stop here so that people can ask questions.
Thank you very much, Ajia, for that concise and detailed explanations in terms of those accountability issues that happen during the distribution of those palliative, especially in terms of government procurement and those processes and how the beneficiaries were actually involved. So thank you. We noticed that some participants have been raising their hands and probably there could be more questions. So at this point, I would like Osas, can you take a look at those questions? Let's give preference to those who have their hands up, and we'll give them the opportunity to ask their questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Ajia, for that discourse, and we brought up different points that we really take in note of in terms of monitoring, the flexibility, the consultation, the palliative distribution. So I'm going straight to
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I want to thank the panelists, the discussants, on all they have, said. Really, that's actually what's going on in the country presently. I'm from Oyo Season in Oyo State. And the situation here is also very tense. The government state provided 120,000 palliatives to community levels, the community members at the community levels, especially the most vulnerable, and 90,000 to the most vulnerable, and 30,000 to people living with disability. But the palliatives didn't get to some of the remote areas where they are also needed. I had an outreach with a friend in one Fulani community in the local government. I tell you, they didn't even hear anything about the palliatives, but we went there to go and give them 150 packs of palliatives. We had beans, rice, tuwo, condiments, oil, and the others. So I want to request for Action Aid presence in Oyo State. Please, we need your help. Oyo State is not in isolation in this country. And some of us have been working with Action Aid. We know Action Aid for excellence. And I want to say that again. We know Action Aid for excellence. So we want you to please make your presence known and seen in Oyo State. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, in Nigeria, we work with different indices. We have long-term partnerships in about 15 states now, and we work with the poor and excluded communities to ensure social justice for all. And there are different tools and requirements that we always take into consideration when we want to start our partnership. Part of it is the poverty index for that geopolitical zone and the states and the communities, and it trickles down. And we have our appraisal packs that we use. Hopefully, we work with government to ensure that the issues that are being thrown up are addressed. So another hand is up. Adenigba Henry, can you please? Adenigba Henry, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm here. I want to appreciate everyone on this panel, and to also thank.
It seems it's not there. Adam.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Ahead, please.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Let me first of all appreciate ActionAid for what they are doing, because in Lagos we heard what they did, and we felt their hand in the very, very hard to reach communities where we are actually working. With us in Lagos, what we actually did was to go ahead before a day before distribution to do some work, what we call transient work in those particular communities where we have adopted. And we actually sent out our tally cards to those households. They already had their tally cards. And so by the time they are coming, it's only those ones with signed and with security tally cards that could come around and pick up what they had to pick. So there was no readiness, and the essence of social distancing was very, very adequately monitored. And for the political elites trying to hijack, that did not actually happen. What we did there, yes, we involved the local government, but what we did with them was to even give them that invitation a day before. That is the local government chairperson and his entourage to come. Just it's a day before we actually distributed that they were invited. So not too many of them knew there was going to be things like that, except for just those two communities where we adopted. And we just want to say that ActionAid putting his staff on ground to see that things actually went well too was a very good one. So want to appreciate ActionAid for actually putting a smile on the faces of these indigents and in these communities. And mine is just a comment rather than questions. I want to say thank you, Osas, for giving me this chance.
Thank you very much, Henry, for your appreciation. I will go quickly to Baba Shehu. Are you there? Could you quickly ask your question in a couple of seconds so that we can go through as many people as possible? Baba Shehu. If it's not there, can quickly go to Newton. Newton, please ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Newton?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
it's not a question. I think I want to join Haja on our position. That, however, I think as Nigerians, this is the time we need to mobilize around a government that is data-driven. Because, yes, we know that the COVID-19 came unexpected, but however, if our government has been a data-oriented government, the issues of who gets what on palliative wouldn't have been there. The question right now is that I'm not sure that the distribution of palliative was actually based on the data that Nigerian government collected. It was based on speculations. It was based on, let's just go to this community and do X, Y, Z. And in that haphazard way, you cannot actually get an effective result in terms of government intervention. So I think Nigerians, including us as ActionAid, we should mobilize and begin to ask our government to start a data-driven governance in Nigeria. Without data, we cannot effectively provide for our people. That's the position I want to make in addition to Haja. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nitin, for that addition. The need for data now work and the use of it, not just collecting it symbolically, but using it. Adamu Ishaku, are you ready to talk? Ishaku. Okay, it's not there. Can we go to Anisetus? Anisetus?
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Osas, for the opportunity. I think mine is in line with a question to the representative of the area council from Abuja. Now we heard a lot about the school feeding. There were a lot of issues, a lot of complaints, a lot of challenges that were anticipated. I really want to find out, was it just a one-off palliative, talking about the school feeding now? Is it just a one-off palliative? If it was done the way it was explained during when they initiated this, why are we no longer hearing about it? Or is it that the process have ended? I think that's my major concern. Thank you.
Ishaku is here, please.
Ishaku, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. That question is for Esiet Abiodun. I don't know if at the end of the day.
Okay, okay, let me just wait for any other question, then I'll answer.
Question. Mohammed.
Ishaku can please go ahead. Ask your next question.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me, please? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Adam.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you. What I'm trying to say is not a question, but a kind of a building. She has spoke extensively about the distribution of palliative in Abuja. As a case study of how was.
Sorry, Ishaku, your network is a bit bad. Can you move around? And probably if we can't hear you, we'll take another and probably take the last participants, and we'll try to round up for today. Are you there?
Hello, sorry, I'm back.
Okay. So probably can Abiodun respond to those questions? Things we didn't get clearly, Ishaku clearly.
Sorry, before she responds, can I say one or two things? Because I have to join another meeting too, but I want to also let Abiodun know something. Thank you very much, the panelists, for the detailing of the reports. It's really exciting to see how far we have gone with this, and we are happy to have been part of it. There was a question from somebody who talked about the issue of distribution, who says, how can ActionAid serve as an advisory to government, both federal and state levels, to ensure transparency and accountability in their processes? ActionAid is trying its best. It's tried its best. I want to let you know also that ActionAid was part of the National Social Investment Program, which the federal government brought into bear. And we're happy to be part of it because in our struggle against poverty, we went studying the issue of, social protection, which this program actually falls into. We went to study it in Brazil. A team from ActionAid went to study, and its partners went to Brazil in 2008, I think, 2008, to study how can we move people in poverty out of poverty. When we came back, the government refused, the kind of pressure that they have in them, they never introduced it. But we're happy that finally, the government of President Buhari was able to bring in the National Social Investment Program. We monitored for a couple of years. We monitored solidly on ground for 2017, 2018. The program started in 2016. And I want to tell you something about the FCT. It is shocking to us to hear that there is a school feeding palliatives being given in FCT, because FCT never started its homegrown school feeding. It never had, the school feeding program put on ground. For the 2 years that we monitored, we had no data from any school in FCT. So how can the very FCT now allocate palliatives to some communities? Where are the children? Where was the data before? So we need to monitor, because if anybody wants to claim that billions are spent for FCT on homegrown school feeding, those people will be lying, because FCT, they said they had not started. They had not started. So if they didn't start, how can you, under what guise are you coming to say, we didn't start, but we can now? The palliatives that we're giving in some states in terms of homegrown school feeding were people who were operating the homegrown school feeding, and they have all the data, and they are saying, and it's not new money, it's not new money of palliatives, it's money from that project, that within that period where the children are not going to school, how can we, it's an attempt to trace them. They may not be 100%, but it's an attempt to say, let's give this food, raw food, to these people at this time. So I just want to say that it is shocking to hear that FCT is giving palliatives in that manner. If that is where they got their money from, then we want to know what was happening on homegrown school feeding in FCT before now, in 2017 and 2018. If any money showed its face that was, expended for FCT, and I think that gives us a very good one. And we turn it out to our transparency and accountability people to be able to track that. And so that period, I just want to let Biodun know that there is a confusion there, and we will try to set out. One of the things that ActionAid also did was to listen to his people. So many communities that we didn't go to, government went there. It was real that the government actually went to some of the communities. So some of them and our community were able to feedback to tell us that they have now gotten, palliative. So the communication we established really worked for the community, and we didn't have to go to that community again because FCT had gone to that community. So I want to say, big well done. We'll continue to engage government. We'll be there. Biodun has also, and their team, have put up some requests in terms of data. So data is an issue. So I want to thank you all. Thank you, Biodun. In case you don't hear my voice anymore, I'm starting another webinar by noon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mom. All right, thank you very much, Eniobi, our Country Director of ActionAid Nigeria. I have a question for Sweba.
Can I answer the question?
Okay. Okay.
Yes, so she wanted to know about the school feeding. So actually, school feeding program was done during this lockdown. So under the National Commission on Homegrown School Feeding Program. So it wasn't as if it was FCT that did that. So it was the main agency in charge of the school feeding program that did that. But they did that in line with some of our stakeholders who are desk officer for school feeding program in AMAC. So they had to carry out a mapping based on what they were doing before. So before the lockdown, they already started a school feeding program in FCT. So for the lockdown, they decided to give palliative to the mothers of children within the class of primary 1 and to primary 3. So if you have like more than 2 children within that age bracket, you just be given a voucher for just 1 palliative. And their own palliative even had half crate of eggs. So they did that in AMAC, which were informed that we're part of. But what I was concerned as the municipal, as a member of the municipal, is the coordination of the program, in the sense that, you know, it's, since you are going to share something within our own constituency, at least you should carry us along in the planning stage and not just call us when you want to distribute the food to our teachers. So that was my own concern. But they had their own narrative to say that they were working with some of their donors agency and some of other stakeholders in doing the mapping and identifying the parents, and also issuing vouchers to that they can use for collection for those school feeding program. And I think that was that. So for the other question on the palliative, so it wasn't a one-off thing. So the federal government, under the Office of State Minister, distributed palliative twice. AMAC as a government also distributed their own palliative. Then we also had school feeding programs, and some other NGOs also distributed palliative, and some are still doing palliative distribution. We don't know if the FCT minister will still distribute another set of palliative, but we are still open to hear feedback on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Abiodun, for those responses. I have one question for Sweba here. And Esther from Ibadan wants to know, how do we hold the state government accountable for donations collected from corporate bodies? So in exercising our rights as a citizen, she wants to be an active citizen in the monitoring of the palliative distribution. Coco from Udo says it laments that there was no proper planning, coordination, and resourcing in the distribution of palliative. What can be done by state and non-state actors to prevent future occurrence in case we have another emergency? Sweba?
Okay. I didn't get the second question.
It laments that there was no proper planning, coordination, and resourcing in the distribution of palliative. What can be done by the state and non-state actors to prevent future occurrence in case we have another emergency?
Okay, thank you very much. I quickly put, I want to say that the second question is what we have said in the beginning, the issue of proper emergency preparedness system in the country as a whole, from the local to state to the federal government. And I'm happy that at this moment, local governments are independent. They've got their own, their autonomy. So we expect a thorough planning and a thorough complete development plan, which we are already getting set to engage from within the local rights program in support, in partnership with SCRAP-C. Again, so holding government account in for the partnership development fund that is given to them. Sure, NGOs are collecting this information. And then for Action Aid, we do have a strategic partnership forum where people report and then we get some information. However, it is the responsibility of the INGOs forum where information is generated and then shared. And then we are able to now put a report like Newton said, NGOs are already collecting this data, and then we put a report to the public, just like we did on the National Investment Plan. We are going to give our own view of what we observed, and then also it's going to be shared within the INGO platform, which is working closely with the National Planning Commission, because most money that come into the country from the partnership development comes through the national planning. This time around, Nigeria is crowned as the champion of COVID-19. And while we are celebrating that, we also want to check in-house, be sure that our leadership is also crowned or celebrated with integrity and transparency. So we are working on that really.
All right, thank you very much. Can
Sorry,
I ask?
I don't know whether we are coming, I still have chance to say something, but
probably we might
at the end of the question, we'll give it 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mohammed Abdul Kader, the hand is still up. Do you have something you want to say? Mohammed? All right, let's go. Ajia Sueba, is there a coherent civil society framework for tracking the equitable utilization of these palliatives, not just at federal level, but also at the state and local government level? Can we say that civil society is doing enough in ensuring that we monitor the accountability of this palliative program?
I think for now, if personally I can say we still have a long way to go because we are working at our independence level. Like we have an organization, Follow the Money, the one project went by code, and then we have the SCRAP-C putting together, looking at the shadow reporting. And then we have many coalitions of organizations working in Nigeria. We have a long way to go. But on this one in particular, this is a lesson for everybody. We also need to work and then ensure that we are more coordinated and then putting the data together. But I think we are a little bit more organized, maybe given the sector that, that is also governed by a certain level of integrity and the values that we hold as non-governmental organizations in Nigeria. So a lot of work is happening, but we still have to do more. And the coordination is coming gradually. Prof has talked about IFAS, working at state level, which is supposed to be that inclusive forum for accountable society, where we intend that the intention or the motivation for that forum is to hold government to account by through evidence-based advocacy. So it is happening in few states. It's already going around all the 15 local government rights program coverage. And then I'm very sure with the other systems we have in other states, if that is pulled together, we are able to engage government in terms of accountability with even less stress because it's about reporting. It's about the people who are voted people into power, and it's about where they're saying what they see as being impacted into their lives. And so if they report evidently, then there's no argument. And so we engage in also building capacity. If there's a capacity gap, we also support the government to improve, and then so that we are able to achieve the human rights-based development that we are all yearning for.
Thank you, Ajia. All our panelists will be given the opportunity to wrap up within three minutes as we wrap up the webinar for today. I still have questions coming in. Let me just take this last two, then I'll hand over to the panelists. So in Ebonyi, citizens and CSOs are asked to support the state in any form to be recognized in the states. Is it right to take part in the palliative, even if it's 1 or 2 bags to the states? Victoria, your question? You're talking of citizen participation in the palliative distribution. Okay, Titilade Ogunkunle says, who coordinates the palliatives data collation at the state level when CSOs are not involved in the distribution? I think, Prof, you should help us respond to that. Prof. You're on mute. Yes. Who coordinates the palliative data collation at the state level when CSOs are not involved in the distribution? If you can pick the answer.
That's the question for me?
Yes, please answer.
Okay, let me say that there are several sources of data at the state level. The civil society themselves are also collecting data, like we said. In our own organization, we relied on the data bank. For example, before actual work started in the States, there was the baseline study that was done, which we can rely on. We also know that poverty is not a static thing. There are people that are falling into poverty and others are living at the poverty level. I'm also aware that under the conditional cash transfer program, the state also has data on the poverty level in each state. The Ministry of Economic Development, like in my state, Akwa Ibom State, they collect data. The only challenge is how reliable are the data that we have, and then the need to synchronize what we have. So there's that need for coordination of data collection so as to ensure that the data we have at time of quality, and that we can rely on this data for our programming and our interventions. So, but I think we can do more. Not what we have will not be enough. It's a continuous process. As far as development is continuous, data collection will also have to continue. And like the pandemic that just came, it's novel, taking people on our way. That means that we need to, I want to underline what I just said earlier on, issue of pandemic preparedness plan. That needs to be taken into consideration. Things like community food bank needs to be reconsidered at the state level. And like I said earlier on, the civil society needs to push a bit harder to be involved at all stages that things are done, given our pedigree, that we can ask tough questions in many places that others do not have the ability to ask. But let me say that there's that need for, now that it looks like COVID-19 pandemic may not go away so soon, there's that need for a coalition of civil society that will be looking in this direction in terms of data collection, in terms of monitoring of what is going on at various levels. For example, if we check, we might see that Nigeria has actually spent so much, but we need to ask the tough questions. What are you spending on? How did you arrive at what we are spending on? And what are the impacts of what you are spending on? So the civil society has a great role to play. And there are so many other things that this pandemic has thrown up. For example, in my state, there's school, online school program that is going on, radio program. The rural children, do they have access to this? What are the infrastructure in the rural communities? And then let me come back to what is already on ground that we started in Akwa Ibom State, with the support of Action Aid. Inclusive Forum for Accountable Society, IFAS.
Our time is almost going up. We might be lost from now, so let's try to round up. Our time is
Prof, our time is almost up.
Okay, I'm saying that we need to continue the work of IFAS to strengthen the livelihood of people so that they can withstand the shock, so that the support that we give will only be complementary to their being able to help themselves. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof. I don't know if we can give 30 seconds to the panelists to just wrap up as we wrap up.
Probably we would like to 10 seconds for panelists to round up, probably just one or two words. I would like to start with Sueba. Sueba, probably if you can take 15 seconds, going forward, what can we do differently in terms of palliative support? Probably not for COVID-19, but for issues around pandemics and emergency. Seconds.
So we still need a lot of information because there's a lot of myths going on around the pandemic. That is one. And two, there's the need for a lot of collaboration between organizations because it's difficult to really do individually. So, but when we collaborate through partnership, like the Bureau for Office of Bureau of Statistics is also already in partnership with the Office of the SDG to raise the kind of data that is required in Nigeria. So the work also requires a lot of collaboration so that we are able to reach out to more people and avoid duplication. And we need to be transparent. People need information. If 10 bags of rice is going to a community, the community needs to know, they have that information that you are entitled to 10 bags and maybe 1 bag per household. And so if we are able to do that, people know how many bags, how much is they're entitled to, the issue of even trust in government will increase, and then it will also increase the level of our accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajia. Going forward, Prof, in 15 seconds, Prof, can you tell us what should we do differently? What can we do differently, Prof?
going forward, there's the need for civil society to come together, like I just said, and there's also the need to get the institutions at government level and even international level to give a reliable information to civil society and others about the pandemic, so that we know what kind of information to transmit to the communities. I must say that there's a lot of confusion that has been said in the way this issue is handled. There's confusion, but as far as supporting the communities and the vulnerable is concerned, I've mentioned the issue of more involvement of civil society, food bank at the community level. We could even go as far as having the pandemic support groups in each community and at the local government level. There's need for greater synergy so that together we can reduce the impacts of the pandemic, and of course, to strengthen existing institutions of both government and non-governmental organizations. And then there should be reports. There has to be reports. There has to be a coordinating body of sharing reports on what is going on, so that we know whether we are making progress or we are not making progress. We know whether there is value for money or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. And lastly, from Abiodun, going forward, what can we do differently, especially from the government perspective?
Okay, thank you so much. I think for us, COVID-19 has really shown a whole lot of gap in our service delivery and a whole lot of gap in the system of government. And I think for us as government, we're learning from it and also using what we're learning to devise new policies and laws that will make service delivery better to the people. So governance is not just only by us alone, it's a joint responsibility by everyone. And civil society plays a critical role in ensuring that, governance is given to the people, in ensuring that the dividends of democracy is also provided for the people. And I think the best role of any government agency is to set up an enabling environment to engage members of civil society organizations involved in whatever they're doing in governance to promote transparency and accountability. And for us in AMAC, that's what we've done by setting up an office, which I am heading, to manage and give civil society an open space to collaborate with government and also partner with government and also question government protocols, agencies, and so many other things to make sure that the people get what they really need. So it's for us, I'm calling everyone, also members of society, to also get involved, and also when they see something, they should say something and also act and get their government responsible, and also get other people to also do their rights and also do what they are called to do. So it's a joint responsibility for all of us. We have learned that data is key. We'll learn a whole lot of lessons from COVID-19, and we are going to use that to really implement a whole lot of change in our service delivery and promote more citizen engagement in governance. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Abiodun. At this point, we want to say thank you because there are a lot of issues around discussions centered around issues in terms of partnership, issues around the importance of data in terms of actual planning, designing plan, and even implementations, issues around in terms of being open and even engaging various stakeholders, especially persons with disability when we're actually looking at palliative, and not forgetting issues around women, and also try to see how do we look at, how does the patriarchy actually play? What are those underpinning issues that we need to look at? So these things they are very, very important. So we want to say a big thank you to the speakers, our participants. Actually, it's been lovely having you around. We enjoyed your questions and those who actually made comments. We also want to apologize to those who have not been able to read their questions or get them due to issues around the network. And most importantly, our IT team and the whole webinar team, we want to say a big thank you. Prof, thank you very much for coming on board. Hajia, thank you very much. We thank Angie and we thank Abiodun. Thank you very much. Osas, thank you very much for your time and the entire team. So we hope to see you in our next series, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and bye. Bye, Prof.
Bye. Okay.